Well, good evening, everybody. I'm David Pritt. I'm the Assistant Superintendent with the North Ridgeville City Schools, and I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your evening to join us here and talk a little bit about issue 6 and how it affects the impacts and how it impacts North Ridgeville City Schools. Our goal here is to spend the next 20 and 25 minutes or so talking to you a little bit about the issue, and in particular, the progress we've made since the passage of our last operating levy, and then what this operating levy will really mean to you. If you do have questions, we hope to have time to answer those at the end. You will find a Q&A tab at the very bottom of your screen if you move your mouse down near there. You can submit those questions to us, and again, time permitting, we will do our best to answer those questions while we have you here. Being cognizant of your time, we're going to go ahead and get started and just talk to you a little bit about NRCS and what's been happening over the last 10 years since we passed our last operating levy. So I think the story you're going to hear is a story that is truly remarkable in today's educational environment. The last time the board came to families for a new operating money was in 2012. And in 2012, the board made the promise that if we pass that operating levy, we would not come back to the district for new money for a period of 10 years. And we have made that goal. And when we start talking in these next couple of slides about the things that have happened with that money, the fact that we have made it 10 years with the increases in programming that we've had, and particularly with our increase in enrollment that we've had, is really a telling story. So issue 6 itself is an operating levy. It'll be on the ballot May 3rd of 2022. And the plan for that is to use those funds to continue the current academic programming, to continue the educational offerings that we've been able to expand over the last decade. The money can be used for the maintenance of school facilities, and it allows us to continue to hire and attract the best of the best teachers that we can find out there for our students, because that's what we really believe they deserve. And then lastly, it will help us keep pace with students' learning and technology needs. So I've had the privilege of being in the district for a number of years. I've been in the district about 22 years, and I've gotten to see the evolution of the district from one that when I started had about 2,700 students to one that's pushing about 4,700 students right now. And a lot of that growth has come just in the last 5 to 10 years. So when we look at the fact that we passed our last operating issue in 2012, we look just back 5 years to the 2016-2017 school year. Since that point in time, the district has experienced a 10% increase in student enrollment. We've gone from a district of about 4,100 students, 4,150 students, to one that's pushing 4,700 students. So a full 10% increase. And that is unusual in Ohio schools right now. So about 89% of Ohio schools and schools districts are actually losing enrollment and losing students. We're in that very small percentage that are gaining. And in fact, we're gaining at a pace that puts us in the top 5 or the top 10 for enrollment in the state. And that has been a consistent pattern over the last several years. So in order to support those growing needs, when you start talking about 1,000 or 500 students, you're realistically talking about 25, 30 new classroom teachers that you need to add just to keep up with those numbers. That wouldn't include your support services. That wouldn't include intervention specialists. It might not include your specialist teachers. So the district has been vigilant in going out and making sure that we're recruiting great staff. So to put this in perspective for you, prior to this current school year, the 21-22 school year, the district was required to hire 18 support staff, 26 new certified staff members. Of those numbers, some of those are replacements, some of them are not. So to put in a little clearer number on there for you, just in the certified staff realm, we hired 16 brand new teachers to deal with our enrollment from last year to this year. And then the other place that we're looking to use our current existing funds and in our areas of space, quite honestly. When you bring in 500 students or more than that over the last 10 years, if you look further back historically, we run into a space to where we're starting to get cramped. So the academic center is in great shape, but we've run out of space at our high school. Our high school was designed to hold 900 to 1,000 students. It's pushing 1,400 students. So one of the places that unfortunately we're going to be needing to spend operating dollars is moving into bringing some mobile classrooms to the district. So Mr. Pacini and the board have recently approved 8 new classrooms, mobile units for the high school for this coming school year that will additionally provide some restroom space. But again, it's just another of those challenges that we've been able to overcome for the time being using our levy still from 2012. So I told you I've been in the district for a long time, and I can sit here and in true honesty say that it is not the same district that we were when I started. Certainly not the same district we were when we started 10 years ago. Someday they're going to let me just do a presentation on these slides themselves, because I think the numbers and the stats in there are newsworthy, quite honestly. So if we look back to the 2011-2012 school years, the last time we passed new operating dollars, we've seen a 485% increase in the number of students taking College Credit Plus. If you're not familiar with College Credit Plus, that's basically students that are still in high school earning their college credits before they leave. We've seen a 670% increase in the number of classes taken. Put that in perspective, half of our graduates from last year's 2021 class left North Ridgeville High School with college credit. And that just provides pathways for students then. It's a money saver for families. Those students then combine for over 1,700 college credits. So last year's graduating class took 1,700 credits with them out into whatever pathway they decided would be their next stop. Some of the other highlights, some of the other bullets that we've been able to do, 5 years ago, we opened Ranger High-Tech Academy. Grades 4 through 7 at that point in time, 96 students. We've been able to expand that without the new operating dollars. Now services students in grades 2 through 11, 350 students roughly. It's the only fully accredited public STEM school in Lorain County and one of only 70 in the entire state of Ohio. To give you some kind of idea of the programming that's offered there, we give numerous tours of Ranger High-Tech Academy, of places that come to see what we're doing. And we've brought those people in from as far away as San Diego, California, to come and see what's happening at Ranger High-Tech Academy, so that they can take that programming back with them. So looking even further back, if we look back to the 2011-2012 school year, because again, I think this paints a picture of where we were and what we've been able to do with that operating funds that we were given. We've increased our graduation rate, our 4-year graduation rate, by almost 12 points. And if it weren't for COVID, that being a little bit down, that would be 2 or 3% higher. So typically that 4-year graduation rate runs 94, 95%. So we've brought that up from 80.6% since the last time we asked the community for a new money support. We've added languages. We've added Chinese. We've added American Sign Language. That third bullet point down, I think, talks again to the opportunities we're presenting our students. We've gone from offering a single high school credit in our middle school program to offering enough that our students could go straight from being 8th graders to being sophomores if they so chose. Advanced placement courses, again, more offerings for students. We've gone from having 4 available to having 17 available. We have 350 AP tests taken last school year alone. And then on the outside, aside from the academics, we've added sports offerings with swimming, with gymnastics. We've offered clubs at all levels. So we offer art clubs at our elementaries. We've got history club now at our academic center at our middle school levels. Coding and robotics are things that are taking off with our students. So I've highlighted 8, 9, 10 things here for you. And the hard part is when we look at our district and I say we're not the same place that we were, we could name a dozen more things. We could talk about the fact that we've added emotional support rooms for all of our students. We can talk about the fact that we've added internships for our kids. We can talk about the fact that we have over 200 students who begin grade level accelerating in math in 3rd grade. So I'm a student in 3rd grade, but I'm really, really good in math. I might be taking 4th grade math. My 4th graders are taking 5th grade math. So we're giving those opportunities again. And we've done all of this without that new money asked since that 2011-2012 school year. So it gives you a little bit idea of the progress that we're talking about, making sure that we want to protect as we move into the future. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Mr. Piscini here for a couple of slides to talk a little bit about where we are right now and why this is the right time to be asking for this. Mr. Piscini, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mr. Pritt, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening to learn more about North Ridgeville City Schools and some of the great things that we're doing. And issue 6, the question that is going to be asked to the electors of the school district at the upcoming election on May 3rd. I think whenever we are talking about a levy, I think it's important to understand how the school district is funded. Real estate and state funding are the school district's 2 largest revenue sources. And from the illustration here, you can see the makeup of actual figures from the previous year and how that's projected to change over the next 5 years. And the increases that we have seen in our revenues are being driven primarily by real estate, property valuation growth, reappraisals, and new construction. State funding, as you can see there, becomes a smaller portion of the overall picture, and that's due to a new state funding formula. The changes in that formula were multidimensional, where we have decreased funding on the revenue side, as well as decreased tuition costs for community schools, STEM, scholarships, and ed choice. So as we are being funded less from the state, real estate continues to grow in the area, as I'm sure you are well aware. You start to see that state revenue percentage come in lower as part of the overall picture. And as for the funding formula itself, it uses what they call a capacity methodology, and it's still heavily weighted on average income levels and property valuation. And North Ridgeville is in a rapid growth phase, and our capacity is much higher than the statewide average. This places us on the guarantee. We are a guaranteed district, and that means that we continue to receive around the same amount because we cannot be funded less than our fiscal year 20 base funding levels. Otherwise, if we were funded strictly on the capacity calculation, the district would lose funding. So we kind of remain the same. We've been flat funded for several years, and under this new formula, we kind of keep that consistent. Whenever we assess the financial health of the school district, we look at it over a 5-year period. Expenses are expected to increase over the next 5 years, and that is primarily being driven by increases in staffing to accommodate an increasing enrollment. Expenditure growth has consistently outpaced the growth in our revenue, and we are now to the point where our current revenue sources are unable to keep up. This results in a worsening financial stability over time, as illustrated by that downward sloping line on the graph there. And as enrollment increases, the district has to change the way that it operates. And we also have to stay competitive. We've been able to utilize federal funding, such as ESSER, the one-time federal funding to offset various permanent improvement and general fund expenditures to help improve our bottom line, basically pushing out deficit spending for an entire year. And as you can see, deficit spending is expected as early as next year. And in 2 years, the school district is projected to be deficit spending by $2.4 million. Now, it's going to cost taxpayers significantly more money to fix that deficit, plus the ones to come after it, by waiting until we get. The earlier you ask for operating dollars, the less you need to ask for. And it provides for a longer term plan for the school district. And keep in mind that it does take 2 years before a levy is fully collected by the district and recognized that in the form of revenue. That leads me to the levy ask. So issue 6, that is the question of a 4.9 mil operating levy for a period of 10 years. The levy will raise $5,673,000 annually. And if approved, the funds would first be collected in calendar year 2023. The cost for residents is approximately $14.16 per month per every $100,000 in home market value. I really do think the timing makes sense here. It fulfills the board's 10-year promise. And this is the lowest that it's going to cost right now. It's only going to require additional millage the longer it's put off. We have year-over-year increasing enrollment. We are pretty much out of classroom space at the moment, requiring the need for modular classroom units, which are very expensive. We will likely be getting into a building project in the near future to complete our master facilities plan, and we need to be in a position to operate normally throughout that time. Now, this is an illustration of full tax rates for school districts countywide. When you look at what makes up the tax bill, this speaks volumes to what North Ridgeville City Schools has been able to accomplish and how we've utilized our current revenue sources. North Ridgeville has the second lowest school district tax rate. So that means if you go pretty much anywhere else in the county, you're paying more taxes on just the school district portion of your tax bill alone.
Thank you, Mr. Piscini. With that, we're going to open the floor to questions. Again, if you have questions, you can submit those through the Q&A tab that you will probably see when you roll your mouse to the bottom of your screen, although that may be hiding up top as well. So we'll give a couple moments to see if there's anything that flows in here. Okay, Mr. Piscini, I'm not seeing anything come in. So with that, again, I want to appreciate everybody's time tonight. We get the question from time to time, what can we do to help out? What can we do to be helpful? I do have a question here for you, Michael, as soon as I finish this thought. If you're looking to be involved, the first thing we can ask is just to make sure that when you're talking to people, you're getting good information out there. And if they have questions, that you direct them to Mr. Piscini, myself, Superintendent Casario, whoever that happens to be. And then if you're looking for something over and above that, then certainly we have opportunities that if you want to hit one of us at our email addresses here, we could certainly talk to you about whether that's sitting at a table, whether that's sharing out information, whatever that looks like. Michael, if you could, $100,000 value, is that total assessed value in lieu of the actual value? So that 100,000, would that be on my assessed value or is that on my market value? I think is the way that I want to ask that question.
So the 100,000 is market value. So assessed value is always going to be 35% of the market value. So when you take the 100,000, you would multiply by 35% and divide by 1,000. How you come up with the cost of it annual, and you multiply then by the millage rate. And that would be the annual figure. And then if you wanted to get the monthly figure, you would divide by 12.
Thank you. So, Mr. Piscini, this question's out here. I think I can take this one. And the question is about hearing about the master plan. That master plan has something to do with a new high school. So the question is, will there be a future levy to help build a new building or campus? I can take that answer, actually. So right now, starting in December, actually, we reconvened our facilities commission at the district level. So we are engaged again with the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission as far as master planning goes and what that looks like, what our needs look like moving down the road. We are relatively early in that process. So the earliest that we could take that process to the OFCC for their approval would be in July, with the earliest that we could be looking at going back for a bond issue being in November. So I do anticipate at some point in the future, we know our space needs are not going away. We know that we have a space issue at Liberty. We know that we have a space issue at the high school. We know that we have will have a space issue at ECLC. I mean, currently we can't provide every student with full day kindergarten there. We can't provide every student with full day pre-K there. So we know that that ask will be coming at some point in the future. We're just not sure when that's going to happen based on our engagement level with the OFCC and not having a finalized master plan in place. So, Mr. Pacini, I'm going to come back to this one because it's a little more technical. So what was the factor used to project future enrollments over the duration of the levy? So when you figure out, the number, that being that 4.9 mils, how does that figure out, further down the road, particularly as it accounts for our new additional students? Do we figure so many additional teachers each year to calculate that out?
We do. We take a variety of different factors into account. We take historical averages. We take market trends, and we look at the overall growth in our valuation. So we specifically the number of new houses that are constructed in a given year. We look at those trends, and then we apply a factor to that to come up with how many additional students that we are projecting that we will add over a 1, 2, 3 year period at a given time.
Great. So, Michael, if you could just talk a little bit more about, these dollars that are coming to us. We've talked about it currently maintaining programs. We've talked about the programs that we have been able to add. Does this allow for the addition of, continued AP courses and things as we move down the road?
Absolutely. I think one of the main things that I talk about a lot is that as a school district, we want to be in a good financial position. We always want to have a cash balance on hand. We never want to be in a position where we are having to do something in an emergency manner or an immediate, even though we are facing some of those challenges where with the space issue and operating. But what I mean is financially, we want to be in a good position financially, especially when we are experiencing growth like this. And it's so important that we are asking for this now. I think it's part of our due diligence. It's part of being fiscally responsible that we are here early. We are not waiting until we get to that point and we're in a bad shape or are being faced with difficult decisions, not only for the students of our school district, but to the taxpayers of this community. I mean, this is the lowest that it is going to cost. And I said it before when we were talking about on one of those slides. The earlier you ask, the less you need to ask for. So we are trying to be proactive in this, and is in part due to the timing of collection. So the first fiscal year after the passage of a levy is only going to generate half of a typical year's proceeds from that levy ask. And then it's not until 2 that you actually fully collect on that levy ask. So you have to take all of that into account and try to account for all the timing in that.
Okay, you've done such a great job. I'm going to throw you one more. So
Okay.
The question is, does this levy capture real estate growth?
Yes. This levy does not. This 4.9 mil operating levy, this is an emergency operating levy. And what an emergency operating levy, it's a fixed sum levy. So no, this does not capture growth like our substitute levy, where we combined 4 emergency levies into one to renew them. We were able to take advantage of new construction as part of that levy ask, which was a renewal. This is a new ask. but it's similar to those levies that we combined. And it is a fixed sum levy, fixed dollar amount. It will generate the same amount every year, no more, no less. And by the time this levy probably goes into effect, if it does pass, it could potentially even cost less, because what happens as the tax base grows, you spread that fixed dollar amount over a larger and larger tax base. So the millage required to generate the fixed dollar amount on this levy is actually going to go down. And over time, it's going to cost taxpayers less. So that is why we went this route.
Thank you. That was an excellent explanation. Mr. Passini, that's all that I have. So again, I want to thank our folks for joining us from home tonight. I hope it was informative. Certainly, if you have questions, if you need information, reach out to any of the three names that you see here on our screen. You know, as we talked about, the change in North Ridgeville has been monumental, and I'm excited about where we are now and ultimately where we're going to go. You know, and this issue is going to not only keep us competitive with what we're doing, but give us that opportunity to really take those next steps. So I appreciate everyone's time tonight and have a great evening. Thank you.